What's up everyone, welcome back to Just Finish Coding. This is part 2 of our object-oriented programming series on Python, so let's get coding.
Just finished coding.
Now a quick interjection here, if you've not watched part 1 of this series, please watch it before you come here because we're picking up from where we left off and you'll be pretty lost. I'll leave a card for you right here. Please watch the video and then come right back. Now if you're still here, I'm going to assume that you've watched part 1, in which case you should have a pretty basic understanding of classes and objects, what they are and why exactly we use them. So let me actually give you a quick overview of what we'll be doing in this video, and our main topic would actually be inheritance. So we'll be talking about what inheritance is and why we actually use it, and then what parent, child or super and subclasses are. Then we can start using methods from the parent class, and then finally we'll talk about overload methods. So I'm excited guys, so let's get right into the code. So to answer the question what is inheritance, it's basically very similar to something that happens in real life, except that it's much more accurate. So when we actually have a class that inherits from another class, that class which has actually inherited the properties of the other class actually has pretty much all the methods and the variables that the original class had. So these two classes, right, have different names. So the class which is giving the properties of itself is called the parent class or the superclass, while the class which is actually receiving the properties is called the subclass or the child class. So that's basically the idea of what inheritance is, and the reason we actually use inheritance is because we can reuse all sorts of methods without actually coding in the entire thing once again. And usually for most small projects, inheritance isn't actually that important, and we actually would just type in a new class again manually. But think about larger and larger projects where there are like thousands and thousands of lines of code for a class. Well, in that case, we'd actually definitely not want to code the entire class again, and we just want to kind of inherit certain methods and certain variables that are there in the original class. And that's why we actually use inheritance, and the simple answer for why is just because it saves us time and we can reuse stuff. Now this is how we can actually use the inheritance property in our code. I'm going to delete all of these objects which I had them created right there, and I'm going to declare a new class which is going to be called book2, okay? And this is actually going to inherit from our main book class. So if you actually watch the first video, you'd notice that I had this word typed in called object. And what this object word actually specifies is that the class is not inheriting from anywhere. So if I want to inherit from another class, all I have to do is to type in the name of the class right here. So in our case, that's just going to be book. And this is going to ensure that our book2 class inherits from the book class, and our book2 class is the child class, and the book class is the parent class. I'm just getting a bit of like a tongue twister right there, so I'm just going to call that book1 and this as book2. So right here I'm going to rename that book1, and this is the parent class and this is the child class. You can also call it the superclass and the subclass. Alright, so now I'm just not going to have anything within this class, okay? I'm just going to have in a pass coded right there, so that basically nothing is coded in. Now, if you just had in a class like this, the class wouldn't take in any arguments and wouldn't do anything. But since we are actually inheriting a class, what we can actually do is to just declare an object. I'm going to call it b equals to book2 and then an open and close brackets. And now I can actually call the print out function, and that is going to ensure that this function or rather this method right here, I shouldn't say function, the correct word is method. This method is actually going to be called out, and this method actually executes despite the fact that we actually had nothing coded in right here. Now if we just run this program right now, you might notice that we get some errors, and the reason for that is because we actually did not pass in these two values. So we can just pass in the two values right here when we're actually initializing or making a new object, and I'm just going to call it something random. I'm just going to enter in some random text, and I'm going to enter in a random number. So now if I actually save this and now I run the program, Now you'd notice that we had pretty much the exact same method executed despite us never actually coding it right here. And that is how you can actually inherit methods from the parent class itself. Now, if you actually have, pretty large project or a pretty large program, I should say, and you want to inherit certain methods, but for certain other methods, you don't want the methods from the parent class. Instead, you actually want to execute a different output, okay, based on the same method. Okay, what you can actually do is overload the particular method, and the way you can actually do that is to just have like the print out method defined right here itself. So I'm just going to say def print out self. Okay, and I'm going to change this a little bit. So all I'm going to do instead of printing these two things is that I'm just going to print out and I'm just going to call in hello world. Okay, just for example. So hello world, there we are. Now, if I actually call in this method right here, just comment down below on what you think will happen. I'm going to run the program, and now you can see we actually printed out hello world and not this method from the parent class. And the reason for this is that the methods within the child class are given priority if they are actually overloaded on top of the parent class methods. So you can actually just change the methods that you want to change and keep the methods that you do not want to change by inheriting a class from another class. And that is why inheritance is so useful and it's so widely used. Like I said, usually in larger projects, but even in smaller projects, it can really be used to boost your code and make sure you actually code a lot less instead of having to rewrite entire classes all over again. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is pretty much all we'll be coding in this video. If you've enjoyed this video, please make sure you leave a like and also don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you in the next video.